Hey, it's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today's the 20th of January. It's 9:30, and we're just finishing up. And I wanted to make a video to respond to some things that I'm seeing on different Facebook pages. And I really appreciate these Facebook pages because they bring people into this and help them to get into it and answer some of the questions, just the day-to-day questions on raising pigs. So one of the sites is Pastured Pig, the other one is Mangalitsa, and that's Mangalitsa, Litsa, okay? One of the conversations that I've seen recently, and it's come up a couple times, is what about the Mangalitsa pig? What is it used for? So you might be thinking, well, what do you use a pig for? I talk a lot about how we manage them on the farm and we use them to dig our gardens and dig our produce areas and things like that. But I think what the person is referring to is how is the animal processed and what is the type of use? You might be thinking, is there more than one? Well, let's break it down into two categories. There would be fresh and the other one would be cured, all right? A cured piece of meat or charcutered meat, known as charcuterie, it's an art form of meat preservation, really. Back in the day, they didn't have freezers, so they had to use salt to cure the meat. An example of that would be this right here, and I've shown this a lot of times. We make this stuff all the time. This is prosciutto. This one has been cut by whoever walks through the butcher shop here because it's kind of fair game, and I don't mind that. I mean, if you're working during the day and you need a boost, you take a little bit of this and baby, you get a boost. This is cut very thin, so you use a real sharp knife and you cut it as thin as possible, even thinner than that. You want it to be able to look right through it almost, and a good chef can master that. Another example would be this is a lomo. It's off of the loin, and this piece is been salted and then hung. And this one is about 6 months old. So it's ready to be used. It's in the shop because the slicer's here, and I think it's going to be cut up for our lunch tomorrow because we're going on a little trip. We're going to take some manga with us. But those are two examples. There's many, many, many more. We have guanciale, which is a cured jowl. We have culatello, which is when we take and break down the rear ham into the individual muscle groups, and then we cure them separately. We're going to get a very good grade of cured meat, but doesn't take as long as the prosciutto does. This guy gets salted and hung for, this one is over a year old. And if they go a couple years, it's even better. The quality increases on them, and that's no doubt. Now, the Mangalitsa pig is probably the best pig for charcuterie. A lot of people agree on that. Some people don't, but I would say it is hands down the best pig for charcuterie because of the quality of the fat that we get off of it. Okay, so the first group would be the charcutered meats or the cured meats. I've heard it said that that's all the pig is good for. It could be nothing further from the truth. I'm going to show you a couple of products here. You're not going to really see much here, but this is when we grind up a lot of the trim, and sometimes we'll even put in whole hams and grind them up, because breakfast sausage like this is absolutely outstanding. I mean, when you start your day with a couple of these patties and some scrambled eggs or some fried eggs, you are on it until lunch. You really have the energy to keep going. You might be thinking, well, it's a lot of fat in your diet. Okay, here's a couple other products I want to show you. This is bacon. This is everybody's favorite. When you see Mangalitsa bacon, A lot of people do kind of recoil and they say, wow, that's an awful lot of fat on that. But once it's cooked down and the fat on the belly solidifies, it turns like a golden shade, and it's actually firm. It's not the floppy, watery fat. These are pork chops, and the guys that do our USDA cutting do such a nice job. They put this paper in there, so you can't really see much, but you can see the color here, and we call the Mangalitsa the other red meat, all right? Because, you know, the pork industry makes the other white meat, and they're referring to wow, it's just like chicken. We're looking at this Mangalitsa and we're saying, hey, this is like beef. It's more like beef. And I can tell you, around my house, I've got several children, and when they have the choice between steaks and pork steaks, like collar steaks or loin steaks, or even pork chops, normally they'll take the pork. This pork has flavor like you would not believe. And here's a mainstay around here is bratwurst. And these are just plain bratwurst. And lots of times we'll dedicate whole pigs to just ground meat products like breakfast sausage, bratwurst. We do some bigger sausages here at the farm, but I'm not going to show any of those because they're not actually for sale. The stuff that we sell and can sell it through our website has to be done at a USDA approved butcher shop. Our butcher shop is a custom exempt, and it's not suitable. Maybe someday we will be USDA, but right now we are not. Now, why is this pig so outstanding for both charcuterie and what we would call fresh meat? This is fresh meat. So you got those two classes, charcuterie meats and fresh meats. And I'm here to tell you that I think it is outstanding fresh meat. Why is that? Why is it so different from any pig that you'll get, you know, at the store, or even, you know, some of my farmer friends that raise pigs as well, and they're dedicated to a certain type of pig. They'll say, boy, I really like that Mangalitsa, you know, for eating purposes. Now, the Mangalitsa does not grow quite as fast, so that's not as attractive to certain farmers. They want a pig that's going to get what they call fat in 7 months, and the Mangalitsa just doesn't do that. It's a heritage pig, and they grow at the rate that they were designed to grow at, and we like to slaughter or process at about 1 year, and that's kind of a minimum. A little bit older than that is even better. Now, why is this different? Why is the fresh meat so different, you may ask? Well, there's actually 3 factors, I believe. This is my philosophy on it. I've raised pigs a long time, and we've been able to experiment with different things. I don't know everything there is to know. I'm learning every day, but this is what I think it is, and it seems to make sense. You have 3 factors. You have the breed of pig, you have the environment that the pig is in, and you have the feed that the pig gets. Now, we don't want to feed these pigs a lot of corn. A little bit's okay, but if we feed them a lot of corn, then our fat will not be that color right there. That is snow white right there, and that's because the lack of corn. What do you feed then? Well, we feed small grains and forages. Forages are things like hay, beets, potatoes, things like that. Stuff that grows in the ground, they dig it up and eat it. When we have to supplement that, like now the ground's pretty hard and they've gotten everything out of it that we planted, pretty much. We're going to give them some grain, and what I like to give them the most is barley. When it's super, super cold, I will mix in a little corn because the energy is something that they can use. And I would rather have them burning that cheap corn energy off than the more expensive fat that they've put on. And okay, why the fat? Why am I talking about fat all the time? I thought the USDA wants us to eat like low-fat stuff, like low-fat Diet Pepsi and things like that. Isn't that good for us? Well, I don't think so. For one thing, the flavor is in the fat. So if we have, let's say, a bratwurst like this that's got the white fat in it, right? It just is so much better than if it's very, very lean. Lean meat's kind of dry and taste not very tasteful. So can you just take a lean piece of meat and throw fat in it and call it good? Well, not really, because you don't have the intermuscular fat. You don't have that fat that's in the muscle like you do on a Mangalitsa. Okay, another thing that I've heard is, Mangalitsa's too fatty. Let me just ask you this question. Do you ever hear Thomas Keller from the French Laundry saying it's too fatty? No. They love the fat. You ever hear him say, praise the lard? Well, they say that because you take fat like this. This is the leaf fat. This comes from the inside of the animal, around the kidney. Sometimes it's called the kidney fat. This is more prized than, let's say, the back fat. On an animal like a 300-pound Mangalitsa, they'll have about this much fat on their back, and it's hard and it's snow white. Floppy fat like blubber, you don't really want that. It just kind of melts off. This stuff will stay nice and hard, just like cheese. Even in room temperature, it will keep. Because we're feeding the barley, there's a lot of tannic acid in barley, and that's very important to get those tannins into the fat, because tannins, like when you tan a hide, when you're going to make a like rawhide or something, the tannins will resist rancidity in that fat. Well, they'll enable the fat to resist rancidity. And you know that we finish hogs a lot of times, our Mangalitsas a lot of times, on acorns. Acorns are super, super high in tannic acid. So that's why we do that. In the days of old, you would turn pigs out into the forest and they would mast. It's called masting the forest. And they would be out there in the fall, and usually processing time was right after they started coming in, and that would be in December. They come in. Pigs are a little bit like bears in a way. They do spend more time in their beds when it's dark and cold. So that enables them to do that when they eat all those acorns. That's one of the reasons we finish them on them. Now the fat, well, what do you do with this amount of fat from one pig? That's one pig right there, which is about a 280 pounder. That's just the leaf lard. People, oh, it's too fat, it's too fat. That stuff is like gold. You take it and you render it. So you put it in a pot, double boiler is what Jill uses, and heat it until a lot of the water goes out of it. And then it's poured out, and you are left with this lard. This is Baker's Green Acres lard. This is not done under any kind of inspection, because we would have to send it off to do that. And we don't do that at this point. So this is done right here in the butcher shop. So it's not inspected, and we cannot sell this as food, but we can sell this as like something that you could comb your hair with, right? Brush your teeth with, things like that. But we can't sell it as food at this point. Work in that direction, but right now we can't do it. But you see, it's snow white, and you can scoop this out. Yeah, this is wanting to plop out of there. Look at that. Oh, that smells good. You can scoop this out with a spoon, put it in a pan. It won't really smell porky. And then put green beans in it fresh. And that's it. That's all you need. You really don't, it's really, really good. And we use it around